Communities shell shocked, life scattered and torn. Guns replace alarm clocks, every dying morn. Well-intentioned project see my father shine.
Work and play without delay. Choose the browser engineered for speed.
While the usual suspects to the east salam, well, although they sign of truth, still them bad boys running loose in these killing fields, otherwise known as lava and tears. As the tragic drama unfolds, as we pray for all them lost souls, don't ask for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. Oh, and for from a different hammer. Try tell David Rana, forget Haiti, cause that's sorry for lava. Oh, Lavanti, yeah, here we come. Lavanti, we are going to beat a different drum. I've heard them singing dirges for your son. Oh, Lavanti, come let me turn it round. We could make a difference. Oh, yeah. For what profit, son? Tell me what gain you stayed in your pocket from dirty cocaine or high brand sneakers, diamonds and chains. For your new master, you blow out your brother praise for misguided respect and rank, and a victim of what he planned in this killing frenzy. Is it Beirut or Lavanti? As the video footage unrolls as crime spirals out of control, don't ask for whom the bell tolls. It's all as material values we choose over moral values. I say forget Iraq, the real war's all is Lavanti. Sing with me, over Lavanti, here we come. Oh, here we come, over Lavanti, you are to beat a different drum. I've heard them singing dead song, dead hymn for your son. Oh, over Lavanti, come let me turn it round. Yeah. Oh. In quiet Tobago, with crime knowing a teacher shortcutter to shut up incest. Long time teacher Mildred, Elizabeth is afraid. Now in the same classroom, she gives and displayed. The picture I paint is monstrous, but we can't wash we hands like conscious. Look in the mirror, I know they only Lavanti. As for the bosses are paroled, as we will load up the next hole. Don't ask for whom the bell tolls. It's not for no. As material values we still choose. Westmoreland is your turn tomorrow. I say to hell with Saddam, let we rally wrong Lavanti. Sing with me, Gun Hill Maloney. Yeah, here we come. Gun Hill Maloney, you want to beat that different drum. I saw you singing dead.
Who's coming in the driveway?
There's him for your son. Oh, Gun Hill Maloney. Come let me turn it round. power in me. Hey, hey, hey. Oh, oh. This is our country. We must win it back. This freewheeling crime spree. We must all attack that illegal weapon of which you know could spell oblivion for you tomorrow. Look, that criminal we have, that we call friend or brother, could become like Judah for you tomorrow. As the record gets this unfolds, as crime creates a dark hole, don't answer whom the bell tolls. It tolls for no, from pauper to business tycoon, no one is safe or immune. So resolve this crisis, bring back values to TNT. TNT, oh TNT, yeah, here we come. TNT, we have to beat a different drum. I've fed up singing dead songs, dead hymns for your sons. Oh, TNT, TNT, come let me turn it round, turn it round. TNT, here we come. Oh, TNT, I want to beat a different drum. I want to sing a glad song, a happy song for your sons. Oh, TNT, come let me turn it round. TNT, TNT. Here we come, TNT. We are to beat a different drum. I want to sing a merry song, a happy song for your son. Come with me, TNT. Come let me turn it around. TNT, TNT. Here we come, TNT. We are to beat a different drum. I want to sing a happy song, a merry song for your son. Oh, TNT. Come let me turn it round, TNT. Here we come. Oh, here we come. TNT. We are to beat a different drum. I want to sing a glad song, happy song for your son. Oh, TNT. Come let me turn it round. TNT. TNT. Oh, TNT. Oh, here we come. TNT. We have to beat a different drum. I want to sing a merry song, jolly song for your sons. Oh, TNT. Come let me turn that wrong.
Making men stay.
And welcome to today's edition of Politics 101. The voice there of Singing Sandra Devines. Singing Sandra. For whom the bell tolls, Quite an apt calypso. As you know, our sisters and brothers over there in Trinidad and Tobago, the government has had to call a state of emergency as the crime spree, as they call it, went in overdrive over the holidays, coming on to the end of the year in Laventille, Mova Laventille, where there was a bloodbath there. And the Prime Minister has called a state of emergency, not for the first time, as crime has gotten out of hand there. As they say, when your neighbor house is leaking, you stand by. We show all the characteristics of Trinidad and Tobago, demographics, almost the same. We're Caribbean, history, culture. And of course, as we say, pay attention. We are not far behind the rest of our Caribbean sisters and brothers as far as this crime is concerned. As far as crime is concerned, we know in Guyana that crime is a problem, and we know that there's the political element to crime in Guyana. People have been telling me that whenever the PPP comes to office, invariably invariably and inevitably crime follows. Crime follows. As we show solidarity with our sisters and brothers in Trinidad and Tobago, and we know lots of Guyanese are there, we pay attention to our own country. Good evening and welcome to you all. I know many of you have been wondering what is the situation of politics 101. We took 2 weeks, 2 weeks holiday. It was Christmas and New Year, and we took the opportunity to get some rest and refuel and be ready. Happy New Year to all of you. Happy New Year to all of you. I managed to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year on Facebook, and we have not had a show since then. Merry Christmas. It's gone. As we say, it's the Christmas season. And of course, Happy New Year. We're into 2025. We're into 2025. Good evening to all of you, wherever you're joining us from. If you're joining us from Trinidad and Tobago, stay safe. Stay safe. Those of you joining us from further afield in the Caribbean, it is always a pleasure to welcome you to our program. Those of you who are joining us from Guyana, in Guyana, and lots of you are there for the Christmas holidays. I'm so disappointed I didn't get to make it in for Christmas. It's quite unusual for me. Usually I spend my entire Christmas holidays in Guyana. I had to split my loyalties this year, and summoned by my siblings, my mother, and others, who, as I say, put down their foot and say, well, you're going to spend this Christmas with us. So I had to change plans. Throughout my life, since I was a boy, I have had my way. I got involved in politics, at about age 14 or 15, and I was always encouraged by my brothers and sisters, my family, my relatives, my children. They never interfered with my politics, and they're not interfering now, but they are ensuring, as they say, that I spend more time with them, and the majority of them are there in Maryland, Washington D.C. area. So was there for some time, and got the opportunity to do a lot of resting, quite apart from hanging out with the family and so on. So I didn't make it to Guyana. But that happens sometimes. You've got to split it up. Welcome to all of you, to all my family and villagers in Buxton, Friendship, Vigilance area. Happy New Year to all of you Guyanese, and it is always a pleasure to be here with you and to keep the struggle going. There's never a dull moment in our Guyanese politics, and we noticed that throughout the Christmas holidays, the stuff just kept happening. Welcome to all of you. If you're joining us from St. Kitts and Nevis, lots of Guyanese there. Antigua, good evening. Happy New Year to all you Antiguans and Guyanese Antigans. Montserrat, Grenada, Petit Martinique, and Carriacou. Welcome. Well, you got to be very careful. Do not leave out. We say Trinidad, and I don't think the Tobagonians necessarily feel miffed when you don't mention Tobago, because there's a sense there in Tobago that Tobago is separated apart from Trinidad. But yes, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, Petit Martinique, and Carriacou. Those of you who are in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, our friend Ralph's country, our friend Ralph, who Um, as murky as water somewhat with us Guyanese. He give his mouth a lot of liberty surrounding the 2020 election, but we are a forgiving people, and we forgive Brother Ralph for his actions. But all you Guyanese there in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, welcome to Politics 101. How about those of you in St. Martin? St. Martin, welcome. The Bahamas, Bahamas, welcome to Politics 101. And those of you in North America, the United States of America, Canada, and Mexico. Mexico is North America, not Central America. Some people would have us believe. Geographically, it's North America. And those of you who know the old story that part of the United States going up there from Texas, North Carolina, not North Carolina, New Mexico, Nevada, part of California, Arizona. They are all part of Mexico that was appropriated by the United States at the 1848 war. And part of the spoils of war is that one third of the then Mexico was appropriated by the United States of America. And so North America, Mexico is very much part of North America. Those of you who join us from Europe, especially those of you in the old mother country, welcome. Welcome those of you in France. Welcome to Politics 101. And I know some of you are joining us from Africa. Lots of fans there in Senegal and Ghana. My sister visited last year. She went into some of the dungeons, those places of no return that our foreparents were forced to go into. And she went there, and when she was there in the dungeon, they had books being displayed there, and the books of Walter Rodney were displayed. And of course, the Guyanese in the crew were somewhat taken aback. My sister was taken aback that there was Walter Rodney's books in Ghana and Senegal in these dungeons being displayed. And as we would say in the Caribbean, she made some considerable noise that she knew Walter Rodney as a child. He would come to our house because that was the meeting up place in Buxton, and Rodney and all the others would come there and chill out in the little house before meetings and so on. So my siblings had a chance to meet Rodney, and so the people wanted to know if she was going crazy, and she said, well, no, she was just moved by the fact that somebody that she knows is being treated with such dignity and respect in Africa. And she steered them to our program. So we have lots of Senegalese and Ghanaians on our program here in the evening. The mother country, no matter where you come from, so long as you're a black man, you're an African. The anthem, the Pan-Africanist anthem. Good evening to all of you. It's good to be back. It's good to be back. It's good to be refreshed, I missed you all, and I'm sure you all miss Politics 101, but we're back. We're doing well. A little flu, but that comes with the turf here in Arizona. The temperature moves from one extreme to the other, and so the body's always, the immune system is always trying to catch up. And so we refer to Arizona as flu state, but quite apart from that, we're doing well. Today in front of the Court of Appeal, there was a protest organized by Sister Adriana Thomas. We're going to have Sister Adriana here tomorrow evening, protesting the uneven treatment of the acting Chief Justice and the acting Court of Appeal Chancellor, and that the government has not been doing anything to regularize the appointments of those two sisters. And so some people are out there today protesting. It's good to see the new year starting on that note. And they're going to be out there again tomorrow. Tomorrow they're going to be in front of the High Court. Today they were in front of the Court of Appeal. Tomorrow they're going to be in front of the High Court and protesting against the reluctance of the government to appoint the two ladies. They moved without acclamation, without the support of the leader of the opposition. They moved and they appointed Mr. Hickins, but they have not appointed in a full-time way the chancellor, acting chancellor, and the acting chief justice. And so some citizens are in front of there. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to you, Savitri. Lynette Greenwood, my countrywoman, long time. Yes, nice to be back. Nice to be back. Nice to be back. And having to go. This morning, the WPA held its press conference as we were away for a couple of weeks, and the holidays, but we're back. We're back. And this morning we had our press conference, quite a discussion there on the question of wages and salaries and some of the issues that we are confronting at the moment. Some of you have not have been sending y'all have been sending a straw poll that is being done, and I don't know who are the authors of that straw poll. And apparently it's the supporters of one Mr. Mohammed and others, and people have been concerned about that straw poll. There is a straw poll emanating from our page, Politics 101, and that straw poll was initiated by us. So those of you who happen to see that poll, please contribute to it. Contribute to it, the straw poll. Please contribute to it because that's a legitimate straw poll emanating, as we say, from Politics 101, asking you some basic questions there. Which party or candidate would you vote for in Ghana 2025 election? And you can see it. Yes, it's there on the screen. You can get it on Politics 101 website, and just make your choices there. Nothing scientific about it, but it will give us a sense of what our supporters are thinking. You have the choices there of the parties in the opposition, the ruling party, and of course the coalition. And you can make your choice. Give us a sense. I say there's nothing scientific about it. It's a straw poll, and that's what it is, but it will give us a sense. So just take a minute and go to Politics 101 Facebook page, or my own Facebook page, or Camps TV Facebook page, and contribute to that poll. Contribute to that poll. It's a straw poll, as we said. As we said. As we said. Welcome to Politics 101 on a Monday evening. It's already 6 days in the new year. Would you believe it? The new year has gone galloping. We have some good news today. We have some good news today. Uh, Coming out from press conference of the PNC. Press conference of the PNC on Friday, where the leader of the opposition announced that within the next 2 weeks, the opposition parties, meaning the PNC, AFC, and WPE, are scheduled to have a meeting. They're scheduled to have a meeting. That was reported today. In News Source, which quotes the opposition leader as saying that before mid-January, the opposition parties are likely to meet, and there's the story. There is the story there in News Source. Opposition parties to meet mid-January on possible coalition for 2025 election. That's the story there. Some of you have already seen the story. Here's hoping, because so many of you have expressed concern. The leaders of the opposition political parties are planning to meet to discuss potential collaboration ahead of the 2025 general and regional elections. And while confirming plans for the meeting, leader of the opposition, Aubrey Norton, told reporters on Friday that specific details of the meeting are still to be completed, but the parties are likely to hammer out the process by the middle of this month. He's quoted as saying all the parties will get together and decide what they do. It is not for me to say that we will do it alone. We will do it together. That is a decision for all the political parties involved. And so that is always good information for those of you who are concerned that the opposition is not moving as quickly as possible to formalize the coalition. At our press conference today, we reiterated our commitment in principle to coalition politics. And we did something that political parties don't do, but we want to set an example for people to be realistic. And we said the WPA cannot win an election on its own. If we go there, we'll be fooling ourselves. We cannot win an election on our own. But we do believe that those who look to us for leadership, those who support us, we want their votes to count for something. And the way their votes will count for something is if we are part of a broader coalition. So by ourselves, we are not likely to get enough votes to win an election. And one has to be frank about that. And so therefore, what your strategy is, you have to give leadership to those who support you. And the way you give leadership to those who support you is to be part of a broader coalition that could win the election. Our position is very clear. The PPP has shut the door to any thought of a national government. They've closed the door on that. And so the next best option is a grand coalition of the opposition to first of all remove the PPP from government, and then secondly to lay the groundwork for a proper broad-based national government in the future. But we've got to remove the PPP from office, and to do that, we have to bring all the opposition parties together. That is the WPA's position. As we said, we are driven by real politics. We are driven by real politics. And so, therefore, we want to maximize all the resources and the support at our disposal, because we have to win the election. There's no ifs and buts about that. So the WPA is committed, and we are ready to begin to talk. We are ready to begin to talk. We are ready to begin to talk about going into the election as a coalition. As we said, we are not swayed by an argument that we could win an election. So we're taking that off the table. We have a presidential candidate, but we are not putting up our presidential candidate as a candidate for the coalition. So we are not giving ourselves the burden of having to go through all kinds of hoops. We are not swayed by the old notion that we could win an election alone. We can't. And we are not putting up our candidate as a presidential candidate, not in the first instance. Not in the first instance. And so those are irritants, to coalition politics. We are very concerned about what we put before our people, what we put before our supporters, and not necessarily the who. The who is important. Who leads the ticket is important, but we feel that there are other important factors. It's the what. And WPA is saying that we are going to ensure that we do not let our supporters down. We do not let our supporters down. And so we want to play that role. But the news is that the parties are likely to meet in the next couple of weeks, and we will take it from there. Elections are due on the inside, technically speaking, by August, on the outside by September. The government could call the election before that. It is not likely that they're going to do so, but there's nothing stopping them from calling an election before August of this year. And so the opposition parties, like all political parties, have to be prepared. Welcome to Politics 101. One cannot fault the PNC from saying that it could win an election. Of all the opposition parties, the PNC is the one that is most likely to win an election on its own. But the PNC under Aubrey Norton has said that although it could win an election on its own, it prefers to go in as part of a coalition. The chances of winning as a coalition are much better than as individual parties. The WPA does not feel that we should go for what some are calling a minority government. That is, you run on your own, hoping that neither of the two major forces will win a majority. And so you become the kind of go between the two parties. We do not believe that that is a wise approach because you can have a minority government, but if that minority government is the PPP government, what are you telling your supporters? What are you telling your supporters? You take their vote to create a minority government? No. Our position is that we ask for your vote so that we can be part of government. We can be part of government. That's why we are asking you for your vote. See, when we talk about a minority government, we are assuming that the political parties are ready for a unity government because that's what a minority government is likely to be. That, if you go to the election, the PPP wins the most votes, the PNC got the second most votes, but neither of them has a majority. And somewhere or the other, you are there and you feel that you can get them to act in a certain way. It didn't happen in 2011. There was a minority government. There was a minority government. The PPP, by virtue of the presidency, controlled the government. And although the AFC had the balance, they couldn't control the PPP government. And the government stayed in office for almost 4 years. We do not believe a minority government is the answer to Guyana's problems. Ultimately, the answer to our issues is for a broad national government that includes all the political parties. And short of that, we have a government of the willing. We have a government of the willing. That is, those who are willing to be part of a coalition. Our constitution does not allow for coalitions after an election. We saw, people were swayed by the joinder issue. And now we're having problems because GCOM is saying that even if you join, only the party with the most votes will be represented in parliament. The belief was that the parties could divide the seat among themselves. GCOM is saying that that's an error. I suppose we will have to go to court to find out what the court thinks about that. But the joinder is not an option for sharing. And so therefore you have to go into an election. Before the election, you have to form your coalition before the election. That is where the Constitution leaves us. And so WPA is saying that minority government thing, we are not into that. We rather pool our resources before the election, campaign as a coalition, and govern as a coalition in the first instance. Coalition politics is never easy. Never easy. Because at the end of the day, you will have to decide how the spoils of office will be distributed. What goes to the large party, what goes to the medium party, what goes to the small parties, what is the criteria, and all of that stuff. It is not easy. Coalition building is not easy. But if there's a commitment on the part of the leaders, then it makes the job easier. As someone who was part of the process in the last coalition, I am not sure that the then leaders of the PNC were committed to coalition. I want to take Brother Robert Corbyn out of that because Robert Corbyn is the one who negotiated the APNU charter with the WPA and others. And he was committed to coalition politics. It's a pity that he didn't stay on to run for the presidency because he was committed. I don't think the other leaders who ran the show after Corbyn was shunted aside, that they were committed to coalition politics. Certainly not at the level at which Corbyn was committed. And so the challenge for Aubrey Norton here is to show that he is committed to coalition politics, that yes, he is leading the largest party in the opposition, but that he's committed to coalition. And given his rhetoric, what we are hearing from his rhetoric, he has expressed that commitment. One is never sure, because, a leader may express a position when he doesn't have power, but once he gets power, he changes his mind. That is possible. But if we take Norton by his word, he has expressed a commitment to coalition politics that we have not seen, we did not see among most of the major leaders while we were in office as a coalition. So we continue to witness, we continue to agitate, we continue to fight so that we can do what is right for our country. I don't want to be biased. So that is why I'm being very careful here. I've worked very closely with Norton since he has become the leader of the PNC and the leader of the opposition. And I do think that he's committed. That is my personal view. But my view may be biased. My view may be biased, and I don't want to impose that view. I don't impose it on my own party, and I don't want to impose it on the country. I'm just saying, given the experience that we have had under Corbyn, under Granger and the others, and now under Norton, I can say from a personal point that I think Norton's commitment to coalition politics is steadfast. Is steadfast. But like I said, Norton has to navigate a party that is a large party, and that there may not be one voice on this question of coalition. There's still PNC people who ask, well, what does AFC bring, and what does WPA bring? And it's a fair question to ask, but real politics have to. The PNC can take us to 49.9% of the vote. That doesn't win us government. We still have to have that 0.1% of the vote. And so if we think just purely on the volume of votes that we bring, we may be getting ourselves in trouble. That we have to think about the volume of votes, but we have to also think about those votes that we would not normally get, and that there are others who are able to sway those votes. And I'm talking here about, first and foremost, our own support base. The PPP support base, they have a turnout of 85% upwards. The opposition side, our turnout range anywhere from 75 to 80. So almost 20% of our support base have not voted in recent elections. And they're mostly our young people. And so therefore we have to strategize, because 20% of the electorate represents between 8 to 10 seats. It's 20% of our people who are not going out there. And so we have to strategize as part of the opposition about maximizing our support base. And this is where coalition becomes attractive because, some of us are better at communicating with certain segments of the support base. Rafi Dev and them, they go bananas. They get bent out of shape. When we say that with the AFC, the PNC, and the WPA, we can increase African Guyanese turnout, it means that we depend less on crossover votes. It's not that we don't want crossover votes and we don't welcome crossover votes. It is that we should not allow ourselves to become captive of the notion of crossover vote and not pay attention to our own votes. And so that is the WPA strategy, which sends the PNC, the PPP strategists, send them crazy because they would like us not to go as a coalition. And so they're stoking all kinds of fires. Norton is not presidential material. Nigel Hughes is presidential material. The WPA doesn't exist. Norton should not worry with the AFC and the WPA should go. They would like to confront the PNC on its own. They think they have a better chance of winning if they confront the PNC on their own, on its own. But when it comes to a coalition, they know that their chances of winning decrease considerably. And so coalition for us is a plus. But we have got to make it work. We have got to make it work. The sticking point, as they're saying, is who's going to be the presidential candidate and who's qualified to be the presidential candidate. We have said it here already. Both Mr. Norton and Mr. Hughes are eminently qualified to be the presidential candidate and to be the president of Guyana. We have said that. And we continue to believe that. So I don't think we have a problem in that area if some people think. It points sometimes to the class nature of Guyanese society. There's still the feeling that some people are more qualified than others, not based on experience, not based on knowledge, but based on what social class they come from. And that Norton does not originate from the middle class, the uppity, not uppity, but the upper class people. And so therefore, he's not qualified. No, we have gone past that kind of politics. We have gone past that kind of politics. And those who try to introduce it are merely trying to cause confusion. Insofar as the presidential candidate matters, insofar as it matters, a prospective coalition will have to look at all its choices, all its options, and decide what is the best formula. But we should not fall prey to division, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to divide us. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. Tomorrow, the protesters led by Sister Adriana Thomas. They are going to be in front of the High Court protesting against the government's refusal to substantially appoint Roxanne George and Yonette Cummins, Justice George and Justice Cummins. They're appointing others, but they're not appointing those two Black women. And so people are on the streets and are asking why. They were out there today, and they are going to be out there tomorrow again. And this is the kind of grassroots intervention that we would like to see. We would like to see. Political parties are much more careful about going on the road, going on the streets. It's been a sore point since last year. But that does not prevent grassroots organizers from going on the streets and let your voices be heard. A good evening to you, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to Politics 101. We're discussing coalition politics and the virtues of coalition and what our chances are. It's a new year, but the old woes continue. Blackout continues. And I'm always amused at people who talk about development in Guyana. How the hell can you tell me that Guyana is developing when we can't get our power supply right? I grew up in independence. I grew up with blackout. And I'm now a big man. I don't think I've reached the point of an old man yet, but as we would say in Guyana, it's a big man. I'm a big man. And we still have blackout. You cannot tell me that you're developing a country when something as basic as getting your power supply right, you cannot get. We have to make the distinction between growth and development. There's growth in Guyana. You can't watch all them roads that the government building, erecting, and all them big buildings, private people, government, and say there is not growth. The amount of money that is circulating in Guyana, both at the level of government and the level of private people. And there's growth. But that growth does not lead to development. Development is about how you're able to transform the society, how you're able to bring about qualitative change in the lives of the people in the society, how your institutions work to move the society from one point to the next. That's development. When you're talking about development, you're talking about development of people, first and foremost. Development of institutions. Development of your political culture. So it's good to see roads. It's good to see buildings. It represents growth. It will be captured in the GDP. But would it be captured in the quality of lives of the people? And the answer is no. The answer is no. So what we have in Guyana is not development. I mean, Jack and them talk about development, and they don't want to see development. We want to see development. That's why we're in politics. But to give people $100,000 and to say, tell them, go develop yourself. Irfan Ali and his government people, they will blow $100,000 in half a minute. But $100,000 can do to help people develop themselves? You can't take $100,000 and put it down on a house lot. You can't put an extension to your house with $100,000. You can't invest in a real small business with $100,000. $100,000 is a small freck. It's a small freck. And for the government to tell us that this small freck would help Guyanese to develop themselves is really an insult to us. We in the WPA have said that given what we have in terms of oil resources, given what we are pumping out of the ground, at this point, each Guyanese household should get $1 million Guyana dollars per year, not 100,000. And if a family of a mother, a father, and 3 or 4 children were to get $1 million, you can put down that $1 million on a house lot. You can take that $1 million and invest it in starting a small business. You can put an addition to your home with $1 million. Look at how they have our people fighting one another, licking themselves down, going through all kind of stress for $100,000, 500 US dollars. What a shame. You come from another country or you come from another planet, you'll wonder what is going on here. One of the richest countries in the world, look at what you have people doing. I've said over and over again that one of the things we will have to do when we get power is not just the politics, it's to repair the psyche of Guyanese people. I mean, we are more dignified people than that. You have school teachers, they're on the road in sun, climbing up on one another, going on bad. These school teachers have children who they have to set example, and you turning them into monsters. And I believe in my heart of hearts that the PPP is doing this intentionally. There is something that gives them joy to see the supporters of the other party behave in that manner. It's the way in which they're destroying the psyche of our country. And we have to say to our people that we can do better and that we will do better. Imagine you get a basic income of $1 million per family, per household at the end of the year. That doesn't mean that you stop fighting for wages and salary. You fight for better wages and salary. Imagine a 25-30% raise in the salary of public servants. And then at the end of the year, each family gets $1 million on top of that. Think about it, comrades. What that says is that there are some of us who are thinking about this problem, thinking about the issue of development holistically. We're not just thinking about political gimmicks, $100,000 here. We are thinking about how we get our people out of poverty, because poverty is what's holding back the majority of Guyanese. And if poverty is something that we brought with us from the slave plantation, the colonial period, and we feel that we can wipe poverty off. If we wipe poverty off the face of Guyana, we free up the energies of our people. All those children who are selling plantain chip on the road when they should be in school is as a result of poverty. All those children who come home in the afternoon instead of doing homework, they have to be out there helping their parents make a living. It's because of poverty. All those people who are not able to go see the doctor on a regular basis, so many of our people we are dying. They're sick, but they're not able to go and see the doctor. They can't afford it. And they feel that if they go to the public hospital and the clinics and so on, they don't get the necessary care. It's because of poverty. So when we in the Working People's Alliance say we want to get rid of poverty, that is what we are talking about when we talk about moving from growth to development. Using the growth in the income that we are getting from oil and gas to free up the energies of our people and to make them much more productive citizens, to make them much more secure. You all know what it is to go to bed knowing that tomorrow the car is at the mechanic and you can't raise the money to get the car out from the mechanic. You go to bed at night, your blood pressure gone up. There's no economic security in poverty. And so therefore, we are saying we have to get rid of poverty. And so that's the big picture. When we come to distribute the resources, what goes to wages? How much go to wages? How much money go to basic income? How much money to infrastructure? How much money for education? How much money for healthcare? When we sit down, we have the big picture in front of us. And we are looking at how they're interrelated. How do we use money from oil and gas to develop the non-oil sectors of our economy? At the end of the day, we are still an agricultural economy. Agriculture is still very important to us going forward. In a world of food insecurity, where we can't feed ourselves around the world, Guyana has one of the best opportunities to feed ourselves and to feed others. How much do you take from the oil and gas? Not to pour into sugar, which is losing so much money every day, but it's how do you make the sugar industry a profitable industry? Agriculture is not just sugar. It's also rice. It's also cash crops. If you belong to most of the villages in the hinterland or on the coast, you may not be planting rice and sugar, but they're cash crops. And that should be part of our agriculture strategy. So where this government is falling down is in its inability to think big, to think strategically, and to think sensibly. Do they have the capacity? I assume they do. Do they have the political will? No. Because their objective is to use oil resources to, first of all, remain in power, and second, to put it into the coffers of their friends, their family, and, as the PNC people say, the favorites. They're not interested in development. And so you go in a village, Indian village, African village, Amerindian village, you toss a few pennies to them and you tell them that's development. You're fooling them. You're making them asses. And they're not asses. This government has not engaged in 1 ounce of development over the last 4 years. And it is best placed than all previous governments to launch a developmental initiative. Best place. But it has not engaged in that. Tonight we join with the rest of the world in mourning the passing of Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter. He's one of my favorite presidents, if not favorite. He had something to do with Guyana. And we notice the PPP people are pouring out all kinds of letters as to his contribution to democracy in Guyana. What they're not telling us is that Jimmy Carter left Guyana because of the PPP, turned his back on Guyana. Dr. Henry Jeffrey, in his column this weekend, I'm going to read part of it here. He says, Guyana must have been a huge disappointment to the late President Jimmy Carter, who left the country in 2004 with the following parting words. And I'm quoting, he is quoting Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter says, Jagdeo is an intelligent and capable leader, but he takes full advantage of the ancient winner-take-all system in Guyana. Following my meeting with him, I was very doubtful that his political party, the PPP, would commence new dialogue with the PNC, be willing to make any substantive moves to implement the National Development Strategy, share political authority with other parties, or permit members of parliament to be elected by their own constituencies instead of being chosen from a party list on a proportional basis. That is what Jimmy Carter said. Walked away from Guyana, 2004, wash your hand. And you read the nonsense that they're writing in the paper about how he saved democracy in Guyana. And they're not telling you that he walked away from Guyana because the PPP turned its back on the democracy that Carter purportedly contributed to bring into Guyana. You heard Jimmy Carter there in his own words. The PPP does not want to share Guyana. It does not want to share resources with Guyanese. It does not want a democratic Guyana. 2004, 20 years ago, Jimmy Carter washed his hands of Guyana. I gone. I can't deal with Jack Dio. I can't deal with the PPP. Jimmy Carter purportedly came to end PPP, PNC dictatorship. But he left wringing his hands at the PPP dictatorship. You all hear me? Carter purportedly came to end PNC dictatorship. But by the time he left, a decade later, the PPP had developed its own dictatorship, and Carter would have nothing to do with it. The ironies of life, political life, and history. You're not seeing that in the papers. And I do, we, opposition supporters don't write too much in the papers. We express ourselves on social media. Carter left warning of the PPP dictatorship. The falsification of history. That's what the PPP is into. That's what the PPP is into. The falsification of history. We are talking about the PPP dictatorship today. 20 years later, Carter warned of it in 2004. Gone. Tata. Because in Jagdio, I see a dictator. You all understand what we are dealing with? You all understand what we are dealing with? In our case in the WPA, we fought against the PNC dictatorship. And people are saying, well, oh God, you're fine with PNC dictatorship and you all with the PNC, join with the PNC too. Because the PNC today is not a dictatorship. The dictatorship is the PPP. We are consistent. Oh, you all fighting against the PPP because you all don't want Indians in power. But when we fought against the PNC, was it because we didn't want Africans in power? Jimmy Carter left Guyana in distress over where the PPP had taken this country in less than a decade and a half. In less than a decade and a half. And we have to let you all know that information so that you don't fall for the nonsense. I am very jealous of knowledge and information, largely because I come from social origins in which education should not have been part of my day-to-day being. And that is true for almost all of us. And so education has really led to a transformation in our lives as individuals. And that is why we take education serious. And for us, education is not just reading and writing and spelling and counting. It's about developing a worldview, developing a sense of belonging to something larger than ourselves. It's about accumulating the type of information and the type of knowledge that is going to help your society to move from the place it was when you were born. I was at a little function. I was at a little function in Maryland the other day. As usual, the talk is always about politics when Guyanese people meet. It doesn't matter whether it's Christmas night or Boxing night or whatever the case may be. And of course, my presence probably helped with that. And this young lady was very vocal, but she pulled me aside, and I was about to say she whispered in my ears, but she wasn't whispering. Other people could hear her. She said, Dr. Hines, what bothers me more than anything else is that you all on the opposition side bright more than them PPP chaps. But sometimes when you listen to PPP chaps, it looks as though they bright more than you all. And I thought about what that young lady said. I thought hard about what she said. First of all, she's acknowledging education as an important aspect of our lives, an important commodity, if you want to put it that way. And secondly, she's saying that we are not using our education on the opposition side enough. And that we are sometimes allowing these people who are less knowledgeable about issues, who are less knowledgeable about the economy, who are less knowledgeable about how society like ours works. We are allowing them to look as though they are the ones who have the knowledge and the education. And so, as we move in this new year and we move towards election, we have a lot of heavy lifting to do. First of all, we've got to make sure this election counts for something. And it's not going to count for something if there are no biometrics, there's not a clean voters list, and there's a compromised GCOM. So we have to take care of that. And that is not going to take care of it. We have to take care of it. It is our only means of removing a government. We can't talk revolution and all those things. Nobody is listening to that. And, you know, you open your mouth these days and you talk about change and they say that, you know, you're trying to bring about violence in the society and all of that nonsense. So education, election is the means towards an end, not an end in itself. And if you don't get the means right, the end is not going to be right. This is no Canada where Justin Trudeau, after 10 years, said, I've had enough, I'm done, I'm gone. You all elect a new leader, take over as prime minister, take over as leader of the Liberals. We are not that kind of country. We are not even the kind of country where Keith Rowley says, I've had enough. I've given 40 odd years to my country. I'm stepping aside at the next election. We are not. We are not that type of country. And so it is very important that we take our elections seriously. If you win an election in Guyana, you win everything. If you lose an election, you lose everything. So we've got to get the election rules right. Then we've got to get the election strategy right. And of course, the tactics that go with that. So we continue to stand firm, but we need you, the supporters. Everywhere I go, people tell me that the work we do on these programs are invaluable. And we welcome that. But we want you to contribute to this work by doing your own work. Work among your family, among your villagers, your countrymen and women, in trying to get our people ready. And we must not be shy to say that we are humans, we made mistakes, and we are going to make mistakes going forward. But we cannot get worse than this that we are experiencing in Guyana at this moment. For whom the bell tolls, says singing Sandra. Come, let me turn it round. Come, let me turn it round. We have to win an election, but we have to turn our country around and steer our people in a direction where they do not see themselves as animals, or they're not allowing themselves to be treated like animals. When I look at what they're allowing people to do for that $100,000, I'm committed more than ever to the removal of this government from office. Tomorrow, they're protesting again in front of the High Court. Please go out there and lend your support. And as I said, there's a straw poll. There's a straw poll that is online. Just go to Politics 101 Facebook page and vote in the straw poll. It's legit. This straw poll is legit. You can find it on my personal Facebook page, Politics 101 Facebook page, Cam's TV Facebook page, and vote in that poll. There's nothing scientific about it. One person gets one vote, but it will give us a sense, and we know that the most of the people who are going to vote in this poll are our supporters. So we know it's not going to give us a sense of how the country's thinking, but it will give us a sense of how our supporters are thinking. You have, the choices there. You can vote for any one of the parties, or you can vote for the opposition coalition. And so we get a sense of how our people are thinking. So take a minute and go, you'll see straw poll, because that's what it is. It's not a scientific poll. It's a straw poll. And it's not like the other poll with Azuddin Mohammed and this Mohammed that they're trying to tell us is a real poll. Obviously, there's a poll on supporters of those people. And so this straw poll will give us a sense of how our people are thinking. It's good to be back. It's good to be back in the new year. And we have lots of work to do. Tomorrow we come back. Sister Adriana Thomas is going to be here tomorrow to talk about that protest in front of the appeal court and the High Court. It's always a pleasure, always a distinct pleasure of mine to to be here and to contribute to our struggle. See you all tomorrow night.